From 1987 to 1991, Ford unleashed a new generation of the F-150, transforming a hard-working pickup into a technological icon. This era was more than metal, bolts, and engines. It was the turning point that reshaped America's favorite truck forever. With bold styling, electronic evolution, stronger powertrains, improved interiors, and breakthrough engineering, the F-150 became the unbeatable king of reliability and performance. Every model from these 5 years carried a story of innovation, a mission of strength, and a promise that no competitor could break. For farmers, workers, families, and adventurers, the F-150 wasn't just a truck, it was a partner in life. This is the era where legends were built, loyalty was earned, and history was written on American roads, 1 mile at a time. In 1987, a new chapter began for the Ford F-150. America was changing, technology was improving, and people wanted trucks that were not only strong, but also smarter, safer, and more comfortable. Ford listened, and the company decided to update its best-selling truck once again. This is the story of how the 1987 Ford F-150 helped start a modern era, and why it became one of the most memorable trucks of its generation. The 1980s were an interesting time in the truck market. Buyers were no longer happy with a simple work machine. They wanted a truck that could pull heavy loads on weekdays, but also drive the family with comfort on weekends. Chevrolet and Dodge were improving their trucks too, so Ford needed a strong answer. With the 1987 F-150, Ford made a bold move. Instead of only focusing on toughness, Ford mixed strength with new technology. This strategy worked, and the F-150 climbed even higher in popularity. At first glance, the 1987 F-150 looked familiar, but it was different in many smart ways. The front end was redesigned, with a cleaner and more aerodynamic look. The square style of older trucks started to look softer and more modern. The headlights, grille, and bumper lined up neatly, giving the truck a fresh face. It was still proud and powerful, but also more refined. Ford wanted drivers to feel that this truck belonged in the future, not the past. Under the hood, the 1987 F-150 brought big changes. Ford introduced electronic fuel injection (FE) on its engines, replacing the old carburetor system. This was a major step in the automotive world. EFI made the engine smarter, smoother, and more fuel efficient. Cold mornings became easier. Starting the truck became quicker, fuel usage became better. The truck responded faster to the driver's foot. For working people, this meant fewer problems, less time at the mechanic, and more time on the job. The famous 5.0L V8 with EFI became one of the most trusted engines of the time. It was strong, reliable, and long-lasting. Ford also offered the 4.9L inline-6 and the 5.8L V8, giving buyers more choices. No matter which engine someone picked, the F-150 delivered dependable power. The transmission options also improved, including automatic and manual selections that worked smoothly with the new FE engines. The truck was ready for towing, hauling, climbing, and long-distance travel. It was built for real life. Inside the cabin, the 1987 F-150 surprised many people. For years, truck interiors were simple, hard, and basic. But the 1987 model brought softer seats, better materials, and improved sound insulation. The dashboard looked more modern, and the controls were easier to reach. Ford understood that drivers spent long hours behind the wheel, and comfort was no longer a luxury, it was a requirement. The truck felt more personal, more friendly, and more enjoyable to use. Safety also improved. Ford added stronger side impact protection and better braking response. Many features that were rare in older trucks were becoming normal now. The F-150 was not just a work tool, it was becoming a family vehicle, a travel partner, and a trusted everyday companion. On farms, construction sites, highways, and small American towns, the 1987 F-150 proved itself again and again. People respected it because it did not pretend to be something it was not. It was honest, it was tough, it lasted for years, even under hard work and rough conditions. Many owners say that their 1987 F-150 still runs today, even after decades. That is why this truck earned a place in automotive history. The success of the 1987 F-150 also changed Ford's direction. EFI became the future. Smarter engineering became the standard. The company realized that trucks could be both powerful and modern at the same time. This mindset is one of the biggest reasons why the F-Series still remains America's best-selling truck today. In the end, the 1987 Ford F-150 was more than a model year update, it was a turning point. It blended classic American toughness with new-age technology, giving birth to a smarter generation of pickup trucks. It carried the spirit of hard work, but also brought comfort and innovation to millions of drivers. The legacy of this model can still be felt in today's Ford trucks. The 1987 F-150 proved one great truth. A truck can evolve and still stay true to its purpose. Strong, reliable, and forward-thinking. This is why the 1987 Ford F-150 became an icon. The year was 1988. America was changing fast, And the Ford F-150 was right in the center of that change. Cities were growing, highways were stretching longer, and people needed a truck that could do more than just hard work. They wanted a truck that could hold tow and still feel comfortable on a long Sunday drive. The 1988 F-150 stepped in with confidence. It had the power of a workhorse and the personality of a family companion, and people welcomed it with open arms. Ford understood that the world was moving toward modern technology, and the F-150 needed to evolve. So in 1988, Ford focused on refinement. The truck looked tough, with its square body, confident grille, and bold American presence. But inside it felt smoother, quieter, and more advanced. The ride quality improved, the cabin became nicer, and the truck felt easier to handle on city streets. From farms to freeways, the 1988 F-150 fit everywhere. Under the hood, Ford continued offering strong engines, and for many drivers, the V8 was still the heart of the legend. The 5.0-liter and 5.8-liter V8 South made the F-150 feel alive when the pedal hit the floor. The sound was deep and pure, the kind of sound that made truck lovers smile. The truck pulled trailers, hauled lumber, carried tools, and still had the stamina to keep going. Durability was not just a claim, it was a promise, and Ford delivered it again and again. But the 1988 F-150 was not only about muscle. Suspension upgrades made the drive smoother. Even when roads weren't, owners noticed less bounce, more control, and more comfort. Whether someone was carrying heavy cargo to a job site or taking family camping, the truck stayed stable and predictable. It felt safe, strong, and trustworthy, and that trust is what made drivers loyal for life. Technology was beginning to shape vehicles in a whole new way, and Ford knew it. Electronic systems were getting better each year, and 1988 models came with more refined controls and improved fuel management. The truck was smarter, cleaner, and more efficient than before. It was still pure American steel, but now it came with a touch of modern brainpower. The balance of tradition and innovation made the F-150 stand out in the market. Inside the cabin, the changes were easy to see. The dash layout felt more modern, the seats were more comfortable, and driving felt less tiring. Trucks were no longer just for work, they were becoming a part of daily life. People were using them for business, travel, family, and fun. The 1988 F-150 helped shift that thinking. It made trucks personal, it made them proud, it made them cool. And on the outside, the truck carried a look that aged beautifully. Even today, classic truck fans respect the late 80s F-150 for its clean lines and timeless attitude. It didn't try to look fancy. It looked strong, it looked honest, it looked like a truck that could handle anything, and most of the time, it did. The 1988 F-150 also benefited from Ford's growing reputation. The Built Ford Tough slogan was no longer just advertising, it was history, it was proof, and it was loyalty. Drivers who bought an F-150 in 1988 often kept it for decades. Many of those trucks are still on the road, still working, still surviving, still refusing to die. That is the true legacy of the 1988 model. It wasn't trendy, it was timeless. As the late 80s moved closer to the 90s, one thing was clear: Ford was on the right path. Each year brought smarter engineering, more power, better safety, and improved comfort. The F-150 was no longer just America's favorite truck, it was becoming part of American culture. The 1988 model played a key role in that journey. It proved that a truck could evolve without losing its soul. It proved that toughness and comfort could live in the same machine. For farmers, it was a partner. For workers, it was a tool. For families, it was a protector. For America, it was a symbol. And that is why the 1988 Ford F-150 is remembered with respect to this day. It was built for the road, built for the job, and built for the people who never quit. The year was 1989. They didn't want noise. Instead of dramatic styling changes, they went deeper under the skin, strengthening what people loved and refining what people complained about. Because by 1989, the F-150 was no longer just a truck, it had become a cultural habit, a machine that people bought without thinking twice. To the farmers, it was sunrise. To the workers, it was bread and butter. To the highways, it was a shadow that never left. The look of confidence. If a design earns a man's trust, don't change it. The squared-off stand stayed, but the refinement, that was new. Tighter fit and finish, it whispered authority. Engines that earned respect. The 1989 F-150 came with engines that were not made for drama. They were made for work, loyalty, and survival. 4.9L inline-6 legendary torque and longevity. 5.0L V8 smooth, reliable, confident. 5.8L V8. For the men who believed more is never enough, these engines didn't beg for mercy. They begged for another challenge. Paired with 4-speed and 5-speed manual options, plus the automatic choices of the era, the 89 could tow, haul, pull, and grind through life without losing its soul. The interior, rugged but civilized. 1987 began the refinement. 1988 continued it. 1989 perfected it. Seat comfort, switchgear feel. It was still a workman's cockpit, but cleaner, quieter, and more focused. This truck has my back. A truck that refused to brake. People didn't love the 89 because it was flashy. They loved it because it outlasted storms, careers, marriages, and miles. Ask any old mechanic even today and he'll say the same sentence with a smile. Those late 80s F-150s, it just wouldn't die. That was Ford's winning card. Just trust built from steel, torque, and truth. 1989. The calm before the upgrades but before the leap. They used 1989 as a year to tighten every bolt in the legacy. The 89 F-150 became the truck that fathers handed to sons, but as a family oath. By the end of the decade, many competitors were louder, some were faster, and some had more gadgets, but only one truck remained the default choice of America. Gas stations, highways, farms, factories. America stood on the edge of change. Computers were sneaking into offices. Satellites were whispering in the sky. Japan was rising in the auto market, and pickup competition was firing up like never before. The 1990 Ford F-150. It wasn't trying to reinvent itself overnight because it didn't need to. The truck had already become a symbol, a reputation, a promise on wheels. The 90 F-150 didn't shout for attention. It just showed up and worked. Every day, every season, every storm. A familiar face with deeper strength from a distance. The 1990 model carried the same squared, powerful posture the late 80s had perfected. But when you got closer, you felt the difference. Tighter panel gaps, cleaner grille, detailing, better refinement in body assembly, smoother paint and corrosion protection, improved road quietness. To Ford, 1990 wasn't about changing the look. It was about maturing the legend. Because a true workhorse doesn't need new clothes, it just needs a stronger spine. The beating heart engines with American soul. Under the hood lived power plants that didn't perform for applause, they performed for duty. 4.9 L Line 6, the hero of torque. Trusted by farmers and fleets. 5.0 LV8. Smooth power for the everyday warrior. 5.8 LV8, the don't hesitate, don't stop, don't fear weight engine. The transmissions remained tough, simple, and honest. Manuals for the stubborn purists. Automatics for the highway kings. The 1990 F-150 wasn't about acceleration numbers. It was about momentum, endurance, and stubborn loyalty. This was the truck that pulled when the world pushed. Inside the cabin, quiet progress. Ford kept improving the interior in small but meaningful ways. Better dash durability, more insulation from road and wind, smoother switch controls, improved seating comfort. It still had the bones of a work truck. But now, it was a place where a man could roll up the windows, rest his arm, and drive for hours without feeling punished. The 1990 cabin wasn't luxury, it was peace after a long day. Why 1990 matters in F-150 history. 1987, 1989 built refinement, 1990 built confidence. This was the year Ford proved that the F-Series wasn't a trend, it was the American standard. Chevy was aggressive, Dodge was preparing something new. Imports were trying to impress, but Ford didn't panic. They just kept building a truck that outworked, outlived, and outlasted. By 1990, something unspoken had happened. People no longer decided to buy an F-150, they just expected to. A truck that outran time. Even today, you can find 1990 F-150s sitting on ranches, working on farms, hauling on old highways, parked behind barns, waiting for another sunrise. Turn the key, and they still wake up. Not angry, not tired, just ready. Because trucks like this weren't built for an era, they were built for lifetimes. The 1990 F-150 didn't chase the future, it quietly carried America into it. America stood at a crossroads. The Cold War was ending. Technology was waking up. Satellite news, digital watches, and computer dreams were knocking on every door. The world was changing fast. But on the highways, farms, and dusty work sites, one thing remained solid, unchanged, and unshakable. The 1991 Ford F-150. It was more than a truck. It was the final heartbeat of an era. Ford had spent the whole 1980s building brick by brick, bolt by bolt, mile by mile. This was the last model of its generation. A perfected machine, sharpened through years of lessons, failures, victories, and sweat. If the 1987 to 1990 models were chapters, 1991 was the final signature on the page. The look of a warrior who already won the war. By 1991, the F-150 didn't need to change its face to prove anything. That squared hood, the straight-lined body, the bold grille and clean sides, it was a look that spoke with authority. No curves, no softness, no hesitation. It looked like a truck carved from determination itself. The 1991 model quietly told the world, "I am not here to decorate the road, I am here to own it." Engines that refused to surrender under its steel skin lived the same legendary power. Trains refined, tested, and trusted. 4.9 L inline 6 torque that never got tired. 5.0 L EFI V8. Smooth, confident, and reliable. 5.8 L V8. The muscle for the men who carried bigger burdens. Fuel injection technology had matured by 1991. Cold mornings became easier. Long hauls became smoother. Maintenance became simpler. This wasn't experimental power anymore. This was polished strength. The engine didn't growl for attention. It growled for purpose. Inside the cabin, the calm before a new design storm, the interior of the 1991 F-150 felt like a farewell tribute to the 80s. Straight dashboard lines, simple controls, clear gauges, soft bench seats that welcomed tired backs, manual knobs you could operate wearing gloves. It wasn't luxury, it was clarity, it was focus. It was home to the working class. This was the last Ford truck interior built with the philosophy: a truck is a tool first, everything else second. The next generation would think differently. But in 1991, Ford honored tradition one last time. Safety, strength, and the final 1991 brought the strongest safety structure this generation had ever seen. Better crumple engineering, improved crash zones, stronger cabin protection, and years of data absorbed from real-world customers. By now, Ford engineers knew something. People didn't just drive the F-150, they trusted it with their lives. So Ford built it like a shield on wheels. The emotional truth of 1991. Every legend has a final chapter. And 1991 was the final chapter of the 8th Gen F-150, a truck that carried America from one era to the next without losing its identity. The world was preparing for curves, electronics, and futuristic styling. But before stepping into that future, Ford gave the world one last dose of pure, unapologetic truck character: square, tough, loud, honest, mechanical, unfiltered. The 1991 F-150 was the last truck that looked at the road and said, "I don't need to be pretty, I just need to be true," and that made it unforgettable. The legacy it left behind. Even now, you can find 1991 F-150s, pulling horse trailers, hauling lumber, working fields, cruising small towns, or sitting in barns. Still loyal and still alive. Turn the key, and it will cough, shake, rumble, just like it did on its very first day. It was built for generations.